policymakers. I've heard in a lot of the talks here that, so what can I do? What can I do? You know, everybody really wants to do something. This is one thing that you can do. And when you make these films, you should know that these aren't just films that you throw up on YouTube and hope somebody sees them, other than your friends and family. This is a specific portal. The Youth Climate Report is a specific portal that the UN has just for you. Okay? So all your films are uploaded here, and they're used by policymakers during the COP conferences. I've been to the COP conferences since 2009, and I actually see on their laptops them engaging with the project and watching your videos. So it really has a direct impact. Okay, so we're going to look at how to make these kinds of films, okay? I'm just going to connect my PowerPoint presentation. There it is. Yeah, this is a visual presentation too, so I direct your attention more to the screen than to me, okay? All right, so there we go. It's Amplifying the Voice of Youth with Film, a Youth Climate Report Workshop. Okay, we can go to the next slide, yeah. Okay, so when you go to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change's website, and you find the Youth Climate Report, the page will look something like this. Okay, that's actually a couple of years ago in the Dominican Republic with a lot of very young filmmakers. And I encourage you to go to this site. I'll give you the link a little later. You can find out more about the project, and you can actually engage with it yourself and click on some of the videos and see how they're made. Okay? That's what it looks like. Bit of a mess, eh? It's basically a Google map with lots of little colorful pins on it. And the first question I usually get asked is, what's the colors mean? The colors are the years of production. That's how you know when the films were made. But each one is geolocated to where the film takes place. Okay, so anywhere in the world, when a young person makes a film and sends it in and gets approved, then it gets added to this database. And it gets added by the longitude and latitude coordinates of where it takes place. Okay, and there's some metadata too that we'll look at in a little later. So what are the goals of the Youth Climate Report? This is a project that began about 2011 at the request of the UNFCCC. And at the time, it took the form of 3 or 4, possibly 5 short documentary films stitched together to make a 1-hour feature. And we would show it at the COP conferences. But we found it was very difficult to schedule a 1-hour screening and have everybody come to it, right? So we always had to have different screenings, and it was a little bit of a logistical nightmare. So we developed this new platform using GIS mapping, so everybody could look at it on their laptops whenever they wanted to. So these are the goals that came out of that. Number 1, to provide a visual data delivery system of new climate and sustainability research from around the world to the delegates and negotiators attending the COP conferences. Number 2, to provide a voice for underrepresented youth around the world so they may be heard at the COP conferences. Number 3, to provide a voice to the global scientific community so their latest research will reach the environmental policymakers of the United Nations. And finally, to provide a database of visible evidence, that's a very important term in documentary filmmaking, visible evidence of climate impacts around the world to the general public, so everybody can see what's happening around the world. Okay, good. So here are the links I promised you. You might want to take a picture of this, or if you're really good at writing it down, take these notes. Websites, first one is the project itself. That's youthclimatereport.com. Okay, next is the UNFCCC website. I made it short for you here, so it's tiny.cc/UNFCCC. And finally, there's the UNESCO site too, and that's tinyurl.com/YCR, all in caps, hyphen, and then all in caps UNESCO. Okay, these are the 3 sites where you can learn more about the project and engage directly. Okay. So now we're going to start the workshop. I'm going to show you the kinds of techniques and production approaches that the United Nations likes to see in these short little documentaries, and starting with the camera. So you don't have to have a big sophisticated video camera. You can use your cell phone. And I highly encourage you to use your cell phones because you all got one, right? Okay, so let's have the first note here. Okay, so we want to have this kind of horizontal framing. You don't want to have the vertical. So in other words, that's yes, and the vertical is no. And the reason for that is, let's click. So tablets or your phone or digital camera can be used, but please remember to shoot horizontally, also known as landscape format. Okay, the standard layout for documentary film footage. Again. This orientation fills the screen and looks more professional for the UN policymakers who will be watching your films on their laptops. Finally, okay. Now there's something called the rule of thirds. Is anybody familiar with the rule of thirds? Have you heard of that before? Yeah, you have? Okay, good, very good. You see I have these little grid lines on the picture here. This is the frame of an interview that you might do. And these frames or these lines represent two kinds of thirds. A top third, a middle third, and a lower third. And then you have a left third, a center third, and a right third, going from right to left, or left to right. So you've got to frame your interview subject from the chest up to begin with, right? And place them on either the left or right side of the frame, occupying approximately 1/3 of the frame. Have them look in the direction of the empty space at the interviewer who is standing on the opposite side of the camera. Okay, so what I mean by that is, let's just say this is the camera. You would be standing here, and he will be looking at you this way. So his eyesight, his eye line crosses the camera, okay? Okay, next. The lower third, that's this section here. Okay, this space usually refers to the area where you place your subject's name and title. Okay. So if you want to identify the person, and I highly recommend you do, you put his name first. Yeah, it's meant to be placed at the empty space opposite your screen at the bottom of the screen. Okay, click one more time, there it is. So this guy, for example, is Dr. Joseph Expert from the University of Ultimate Knowledge. Okay, so that's how it shows up there. And you differentiate the font a little bit too. In this case, I bold-faced his name. It can be all caps, for example, and then lowercase for his title. Okay. This creates a visual balance for your frame. You notice you got him up there, and you got the name down there. So it makes a nice kind of frame. And finally, be sure to use a sans serif font. You all know what that means, sans serif? Right? Because when it gets broadcast digitally, the little serifs tend to blur things, and they sometimes stick together, and it might be hard to read. But sans serif avoids that. We'll give the note takers a chance to catch up. Okay? Good. Okay, audio recording. This is very important too. I know it's a visual medium and you expect to see really good video quality, but it's also important that you can hear what they're saying. Okay? So the best way to do that is to have these two kinds of microphones, either a lavalier or a handheld mic. You're all familiar with the handheld mic that you see TV reporters use. The lavalier, you might not notice it, but it's usually on the collar or the, what do you call this part of the jacket? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the lapel, of course, right? Yeah. And you plug that into the camera. That way you have a very short distance for audio to travel when it's digitally recorded. Okay, you get a much cleaner sound. So let's look at the slide. So whenever possible, use an external microphone to record audio. Do not use the built-in camera mic, because if I'm interviewing Jessica and the microphone's here, Doesn't matter what she says, it's going to, right? Not that you sound like that.
Oh, yeah.
But that's how it's going to come across, because the distance is just too far. Okay, next. Now this can plug into your iPad or your phone or your video camera, and comes in the form of a lavalier, okay, to be clipped to your interview subject's shirt usually. Try to hide the wire. Don't leave it just hanging there in front of them, right? Tuck it behind them and put the battery pack in the back there. Or a handheld microphone. They're usually wireless. Tripod. This is equally important, okay? Because a lot of people just like to take their phone and make their video that way, do the interviews and everything, but your hand tends to shake. You don't think it does, but when you look at the picture, you'll see that it does. So let's see what we got here. Yeah, so even for your phone, you can get these little tripods, or for your tablet, you can get a big one like that. Okay, over here. So whenever possible, use a tripod to keep your video image stable. Stable picture is important. Next. If you don't have a tripod, rest your camera on a table or some other steady surface. Now, a lot of young people ask me, well, I'm shooting out in the field or something. There's no table out there, and I don't have a tripod. What do I do? Find a way, right? Set up some rocks. Maybe lean it against the branch of a tree or something. Find some way to stabilize it if you can. And I understand that sometimes it's impossible. Okay, handheld cameras, as I mentioned, record shaky or unstable images, even if you don't think they do. Okay. More production techniques, this A-roll and B-roll. You've probably heard of B-roll before, right? You know, on television news, there's, let's go to the B-roll, right? Well, A-roll is the actual interview. So click here. So the footage you shoot of your interview subject is your A-roll, and the other footage you shoot is your B-roll. Next. B-roll is often used to cover your interview subject and to show what they're talking about. So for example, this chap up here, see how he's properly framed over to the side there? He's talking about the relationship between birds and whales. Well, rather than look at him, say all that, we cut away to this. This is the B-roll, actually showing the relationship between birds and whales. So it's, you know, everybody has a greater understanding of what he's talking about when you have a visual context attached to it. Now, if you don't have the footage you want, you can source video clips and photographs on Wikimedia or Pixabay, and you can use them for free. Okay, I highly encourage you to shoot your own footage, but sometimes, you know, a rock lobster or something is really hard to shoot. So it's easier to find it from these sites. And be sure to download them when they have a Creative Commons license. Yeah. Okay, quick question, yeah?
Yeah, what's the best practice to have a transition between A and B? Sometimes I end up messing between going from A to B. I use different transitions. They don't look professional.
Okay, good. That's a good question. I would recommend you not have any transition. You just cut.
Will it look abrupt?
No, just cut directly from whatever he's saying. Leave the audio intact, right? And then bring in the B-roll right on top of that. Instead of a dissolve or anything, it's just, it's not necessary.
Right.
Not be winning Oscars for these things, but you never know. Okay, next. Music. Music really helps engage your audience emotionally. That's the importance of music. It's not to entertain, it's to bring your audience in closer to your message. So when no one is speaking, like the narrator or the interview subjects, music fills the void, and when used properly, can create mood and engage audiences emotionally. Next. Stock music without singing is best for this purpose. And there's lots of free music sites out there, as you can imagine. But look for the ones with a Creative Commons license. Those are the ones that allow you to use it without paying a license fee. Okay. So, use your own original or stock or royalty-free music that you find online that comes with a Creative Commons license. It's always best to use your own if you can. But if you aren't a musical composer, I bet you know someone who is. Everybody has a friend that plays the guitar or something, right? So if you can create your own music, that's always ideal. Next. Content, what kind of things are you making stories about? What kind of stories are you telling? Let's click here. Ideally, your story will address sustainability and climate research impacts or solutions in your respective countries and communities. Okay, next. Interview experts in these fields as well as the people that are impacted by them. Okay, so it's very important to get that personal context. That's why you interview the people from the community that are directly impacted by climate change. And it's also important to understand this impact. So that's why you get experts. Experts can come in the form of climate scientists, professors, maybe even a government official whose portfolio is to work on climate change. Okay, next. Also, interview elders whenever possible in your community to get their perspective on changes they have seen over their years, because they provide an oral history. You've heard this term before with Indigenous people. Oral history is very important. But even outside of Indigenous communities, having an elder talk about the way things used to be before you were born 30, 40 years ago, it really gives a stark contrast to the way things are today. So those three kind of interview subjects are ideal for this kind of project. Okay. Tail credits. The movie's all finished, it's time to put the tail credits in. These are the things you need to be sure to include. Acknowledgements need to be made to everyone who participated in the making of your film, on camera and off. Okay, so don't forget to hand out the credits generously and the special thank yous to people that have to. Next. Acknowledge the sources of all your B-roll and music, if not created by you. Even if it's free, you still have to thank them. Right? Just acknowledge them. This applies to material with a Creative Commons license. Next. If an organization, school, institution, or company helped you in your film, acknowledge them with a special thanks. A special thanks to credit. If the support was substantial, you may want to include their logo. Okay, again, this is just a courtesy thing. It's not a legal thing, but it's a nice courtesy thing to do for people that came out to support you. Okay. Now you're finished the film. How do you get it to me? This is delivery. Okay. So when your 3 to 5 minute film is finished, post it on YouTube as public. Okay, it has to go on YouTube. Don't put it on any of the others. It has to go on YouTube and post it as public. In the description below, when you're posting it, provide the film's title, the director's name, the name of the location, that's either the town or the community, right? And its longitude and latitude coordinates. Now, often you say, I don't know how to find that out. I don't know where the longitude and latitude coordinates are. It's very easy. You go to Google, you type in the name of the place, let's say New York City. You can do it now on your phones if you want to try it, and add the words long and lat. That's all. L-O-N-G and L-A-T. Along with the city name, click it, and you'll see the longitude and latitude coordinates magically appear. Okay, so please include those in the description when you post it on YouTube. This information will be used to situate your film on the UN's Youth Climate Report GIS World Map project. That's the big colorful Google map I showed you earlier. Next. So just to recap, include the film title, next. The director's name, next. The location, the town or the community, and the longitude and latitude coordinates. Okay, next. So start making your film today and putting you to work and giving you homework right now. Okay, next. So being in New York and attending this conference is a great place to start making your own documentary short film for the UN Climate Summit coming up in Dubai, COP28. Okay. Climate activists and sustainability experts can be found right here, right there, or there. Okay. You can interview them right now on your phone and add the B-roll later. Keep your film length to 3 to 5 minutes, and when it's ready, send it to the Youth Climate Report via a YouTube link at this address. So it's YCRTV1. Don't forget the 1. A lot of people forget the 1. YCRTV1@gmail.com. Okay. So once that's done, the UN will review it, and if approved, add it to the Youth Fund Report database, or it will be used by UN policymakers at COP28 as an information resource. And this is the remarkable thing about the project, and this is why it won SDG Action Award, right? Because it's actually a resource and a data delivery system for the UN policymakers. So you'll often say, my voice isn't heard and everything like that. Well, you can put your voice in these films and the films are heard. It's the closest way to having a seat at the table, okay, and having a direct impact because the information you provide is used in the negotiation sessions. Okay, next. Now, how do we do this? The little training session I gave was just a micro version of the various training sessions we have throughout the world. And we have them on every single continent but one. Let's see if you can see which one is missing. Let's start. In North America, we have the Planetary Health Alliance out of Harvard University here in the United States. We have the Planetary Health Film Lab. That's out of my university, York University in Toronto, Canada. Then we have the Partnership for Youth and Planetary Wellbeing. That's out of an institute called the Young Lives Research Lab, again at York University. And then in Central America, we have the Planetary Health Filmmaking for Indigenous Youth Maya Leaders Alliance. It's a bit of a mouthful, but that's with the John Cho Society in Belize. Okay. In Europe, we have the Young Reporters for the Environment at the University of Copenhagen. I'm sure you're all kind of familiar with them. This is one of the oldest youth environmental organizations that help you tell your stories in using the tenets of journalism. It's been over 40 years they've been around. Yeah, it's a research program that's been going on for over 40 years. Okay, next. In Africa, we have the Ghana Youth Video Program, and that's done with both the University of Ghana in Accra and Wilfrid Laurier University in Waterloo, Canada. This is a research project that I'm directly involved with, and each year we go to Ghana and we find different parts of the country, and we work with the young people there to tell their specific stories for the UN that year. Next, in Asia, we have the Next Generation Video Challenge, and that's from the, can you move a little cursor there, Temasek Polytechnical University in Singapore. And that's a very well attended one too. And even in Antarctica, we have a program run by, click, there we go, the British Antarctic Survey out of the University of Cambridge in Cambridge, UK. Okay, so we get the young reporters, not reporters, but grad students who work with the scientists doing research in Antarctica. And because they're down there, they actually point their cameras at their professors, and they talk about the research that they're doing there. And that includes the methodologies of the research and their findings. So when you check out the map, be sure you go down to Antarctica and click on some of those and see what that looks like. Okay. So Young Lives Research Lab, I just want to talk about them for a second. They're one of the larger partners with the Youth Climate Report, and they do a lot of work with the training that we do. Next. So it was founded by Dr. Kate Tilachek in 2009. Young Lives Research Lab was created as a new kind of space to gather together young people to do research and to share knowledge. Okay. And the main question they ask is, how can we best support, encourage, and empower young people in these efforts? Okay, next. Respectful, empowering research with youth. That's kind of their theme. So based on UNICEF's research briefs on how to conduct research with young people and decades of youth-centered work and collaboration, the research includes empowering aspects such as the youth advisory committees as part of a research team, co-creation of data collection activities. That's very important because sometimes you're out there collecting all this data, you don't know what to do with it. Right? So this helps you. certified research methods, training for participants as young anthropologists. So you're actually kind of taking a scientific approach to some of the research that you're out there collecting. And then finally, youth-led knowledge mobilization. That's where the Youth Climber Report comes in. We mobilize the knowledge that you bring to our table. Next. The Young Lives Research Lab works towards empowerment with, by, and for young people in all their research and education activities and outputs. Digital activism, that's the thing that turns me on, right? Much of its youth-led work involves elements of digital technologies, including video and photography, in accordance to Section 3, subsection 38D of the recent UN Declaration on Sustainability. We just had that this week, right? And this particular section calls for this kind of work. Okay, they're finally catching up to us. So it's very important now that the UN recognizes that for sustainability in climate research, young people need to engage with digital media. Next. So they have these two kind of circles here. You're familiar with a Venn diagram, right, and the overlap of the two circles. So the first one is planet and natural systems, along with civilization and human systems. And as they overlap, this is the space that is the new youthful spaces. This is where you guys can make a specific contribution. And that's what the Young Lives Research Lab tries to focus on. And if you want more information, there's their website down there, younglivesresearch.org. Next. Okay, COP28. So what happens when we get all these films and we collect them? We just don't put them on the map, but we actually showcase them at every COP conference every year. So let's see what we're going to do at COP28 this year. So day one, we have a lot of Indigenous films made every year because we specifically go to those communities to collect that sort of data and that film work. Mainly because they're severely underrepresented, not just because they're Indigenous communities, but because we go to those communities that are remote, that are very far away, that scientists haven't visited yet. So it's very important to get that kind of remote information. So we will show those films at the Indigenous Peoples Pavilion on day one. And this is an example of it. Here's a couple of Indigenous filmmakers from Tuktoyaktuk in northern Canada. And we have a circle question period. This is a system of conversing that they like to set up. And so we'll do that day one. Day two is a press conference. So all the young filmmakers that are able to attend COP28 will join me on the dais here and speak to the international media. And that's always on day two. This year it's at 10 a.m. Be sure to drop in, say hi. Okay, next. Day three is Young and Future Generations Day. This is a day set aside for youth. This is where you have a forum to speak, and lots of activities and programs showcase your work. Okay, next. Day four is Children and Youth Pavilion Presentation. This is a relatively new thing at the COP. They experimented with it last year, and it's a pavilion in the Blue Zone that is specifically for young people. Anybody over 35. Anybody over 35 is not allowed to speak into the microphone. So it's only for young people, and it's children and youth. So it's even younger than 18. You're allowed to go up there and make a presentation. And of course, we have lots of people who are within that proper age bracket who will be speaking and showing the films that we made this year. Okay, here's the map again. I'm coming back to that because I want to show you kind of how it works. So basically, each one of these things represents a video made by someone 18 to 35. And they go back all the way to 2009. Okay, so there's a good representation of time and an excellent representation of spatial coverage because every single continent is represented. And so let's say we click on this one. So just click. Okay, what pops up here is a little thumbnail and some metadata. So you can just watch the video directly right here by clicking on that. And the further information is down here. So we have the title of the film. Remember those things I asked you for before when you post on YouTube? So we got the title, we got the name of the filmmaker on top and where he's from. And we have the longitude and latitude coordinates. We have a category. This particular film, the category is rising sea levels. Right? And then we have the climate researcher. The particular expert in this film has his own page that you can go to for more information. So if he didn't say everything you wanted him to say in the video, you can find out his research by clicking on that link. And then there's a video here, a video link to YouTube that you can copy and paste if you want to circulate to your friends. Okay. And then of course we have the country. Antarctica is not really a country, but that's the place. And then of course the year of production. Now all this metadata becomes important when you're using the search feature of the Youth Climate Report. So say you wanted to see all the videos around the world that address rising sea levels. Well, you would just type that in the search bar, and then all the other little pins will disappear, and only those that deal with rising sea levels will remain. Okay? So it's an excellent search feature. Okay, next. So what is this map? I think it's important that you understand this is a new kind, a new form of documentary. It's called a geodoc, okay? And it has certain unique affordances. So the geodoc is a new form of database documentary film incorporating geographic information systems, GIS maps, Google Maps. Right? Its unique affordances provide new and supplemental data to the overall project through spatial and temporal analysis. So what does that mean? Well, temporal analysis is comparing individual films with each other based on time, i.e. the years the films were made. Spatial analysis compares individual films with each other based on space, that is, where the films were made. And I'll show you an example of how this works. Next slide. Again. So for temporal analysis, here's a scene from a video made in, click, 1941. Okay, this is a glacier, a very healthy, thick glacier in Alaska. In 1941, you see the whole area here is frozen. And then when we compare it to another video of the same site made in 2004, we can see that almost all the ice is gone. Now, neither film talks about the ratio between each. This one just says, here it is. This one says 60% of the ice is gone. Okay, so they each have their own explicit narratives. They will each tell that story, right? But when you compare them together temporally, you get an implicit narrative. The implicit narrative in this case is over the course of 60 years, the ice has diminished by 60%. That's a new piece of data that neither film has on their own, but the policymakers have by comparing them together. Okay, now let's see how spatial analysis works. There you go. The glacier has lost 75% in 63 years. Okay, next one, spatial analysis. Okay, here we have another piece of ice that broke off a glacier. And can we click to see where it's from? Yeah, that's from the Arctic. It's actually Greenland. It's the Petermann Glacier, you might have heard of. And it says there's a 10% loss in this particular video. It talks about 10% loss of the entire glacier. Now over here, we have a similar story from Antarctica, showing the Pine Island Glacier. Let's click on that. And this is Antarctica, 2015, with a 20% loss. Now, what do you think the implicit narrative is here when you compare the two spatially? Any ideas? What would you think it would be? If this is only 10% and this is 20%, we might be able to conclude that. Yep.
The Antarctica continent has lost double the amount the
That's
Arctic has, and in significantly less time.
Yes, very good. And we click on the answer. The answer is Antarctica is melting twice as fast as the Arctic, generally speaking. You're more specific. Yeah. So you see, that there's an implicit narrative that comes out of comparing the two films together. Okay, next. Okay, we're at the fun part of the show. All my boring talk is over, and you get to see samples of some of the films that are made here. Whoops, let's just pause for a second before we can introduce it. This is from the Ghana Video Youth Program. And as I mentioned before, this is very important research project between the University of Ghana and Wilfrid Laurier University in Canada. And we go to the south of Ghana to tell stories about flooding and things that happen to the coastal communities down there. And we train the young people and the students there to make these films. And this year we went to the north and we took a different approach. And we had the young people trained so they could tell stories of the climate impacts on the disabled. So we have another new perspective from Africa that wasn't recorded before, at least on video. And this is an example of one of those films, and the audio. just for policymakers. Not just for the policymakers, but for other countries who want to see an idea that they haven't thought of, that they might be able to implement. We had a great example of a video made in Mexico, where a young guy on his way to school saw this big pile of tires in the garbage lot every time he went to school. He didn't like it, right? He wanted to know if there's something he could do to get rid of that. And you know those machines that crush everything? You've probably seen them on TikTok. It's great, right? Well, he did that with these tires, and he got this mulch of rubber, and they put it in a mold, right? A concrete mold of a brick. And then he put it in a kiln and heated it up. And they brought it out and cooled, and he had a rubber brick. And he had enough of these rubber bricks that he was able to build homes for the homeless. Okay? Now, when we showed that film, I think it was in Morocco, COP22, a representative from Kenya saw that and went, we've been looking for a solution for our rubber tire problem. This is it. And he brought it back to his country. And that's the power of the Youth Climate Report, right? It doesn't just inform and influence policymakers, but also other countries around the world. Okay, let's take a look at the next one here. This is from Germany. This is a film from the Young Reporters for the Environment. Example of it's one of these solution-based videos where people say, I never thought of that, but I can do that here. So once again, this is the importance of a project like this. Okay, next video. Can you scroll down?
Yeah.
No, that's the same one. There we go.
Jessica, can you unmute? Can you raise it, please? I muted already.
No, can you unmute?
Unmute? Okay.
Okay, this particular film comes out of Belize through the Partnership for Youth and Planetary Wellbeing. That's the Young Lives Research Lab I told you about. And we just finished this in August. So just a month old.
We have cared for the land for generations.
And based solutions amongst other representatives of indigenous communities at COP28 see this film, they might be inspired to follow the program outlined in this film. Okay, next. Australia. This is the Planetary Health Film Lab, and this is showing a story made by one of our very first trained reporters on the impacts of climate change in Australia. Yeah. Now, you notice what he did there towards the end, he made a direct statement to the UN policymakers. He said, this is what we need to do in our country. And you can do that with these films, because you know they're going to be shown at the COP conference, so you can speak directly to the policymakers, and that's totally fine to do. He also used drone quite a bit, eh? You get some great photography when you use drones. Okay, I think we have one more. Nope. Good and interesting kind of story because it's very personal, but it also has global impact as well. So let's watch this. Wasn't that, yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. Very, very emotionally engaging, very touching, very informative, excellent B-roll, and a great story, very uplifting story. Not just for the policymakers to see and understand the power of youth, but also for other young people to know what they're capable of, and that you can do the same sort of thing. Okay, one last one, and then I'll take some questions. Okay, this is from my hometown, Canada. Let's take a look. The maker of the film, Vivian Guido, was my graduate student at York University, and I know she's watching, so hi, Vivian. And I'm also very proud to say that this little trailer has turned into a feature film. And I'm arranging for a world premiere. All right, let's get to the next slide. Okay, again, here's some contact information for you about me, the Youth Climate Report. There's the website again and the email address. Take a picture of that. And for the UNFCCC, there's that website and the same email address there. Okay, everybody got that? Okay, I also have some business cards too, so see me afterwards if you didn't get this, okay? One more slide. Yeah, one more slide. Ta-da! Okay, this is my new book. It's called Speaking Youth to Power, Influencing Climate Policy at the United Nations. It provides a framework, a step-by-step guide on how you can put yourself at the table with the United Nations and actually have a say. It talks about treating youth as a community, and not as an individual that it isn't experienced, but as a community that deserves to have a say, okay? Just as Indigenous communities do, the women communities, the disabled. All these are regarded as communities, and they have a seat at the table to represent the underrepresented. Well, what this book talks about is doing the same for young people, treating them as a community so that they will be recognized, especially in policy that affects them directly in the years to come. Okay. Now, I have a few of these books left. I am selling them. They're $60 if you want to get one. Please see me afterwards and I'll sign it for you. So what does all this presentation mean? I really appreciate your patience with it. And what it means is the future is in your hands in the form of a cell phone. Okay? So make a movie, make a difference, speak youth to power. Thank you. Questions? Yeah.